and Geordie folk hero Kevin Keegan must take his place in the managerial hot seat.
I will love it if we beat them. Love it.
Kevin informed the board of his wish to resign at the end of the season, having decided he no longer wishes to continue in football management at this stage in his life.
Kevin Keegan's Newcastle United, the dictionary definition of entertainer. By 1996, English football was already sick of Manchester United winning again. They wanted a fresh new team to win the league, and Newcastle United were famously 12 points clear at some point through the season. Is this the best team never to win the Premier League?
And it's Mickey Quinn who's going to take it. Mickey Quinn on his debut and he scores! Quinn's there. Oh, Quinn scored! Quinn's there with a shot. Oh, it's in! Gallagher with a shot. He scores! He's really playing well. Quinn racing through. Quinn shoots. He scored! Oh, my word!
Newcastle United were back where they began the decade, Div 2, and back with a bang. Nonetheless, there were no Keegans, Waddles, Gazzers and Beardsleys. This was a new Newcastle now. But that doesn't mean there wasn't cult legends to fill the void. For one, Mickey Quinn, who netted just the 4 goals on his debut.
4 none, Jeremy. 4.
It wouldn't be all plain sailing, and it was only a 6-game winning streak in the springtime that catapulted Newcastle into the automatic places on goal difference. Their failure to return to the top flight the first time of asking couldn't have been any crueler. First in limp draws to teams like Plymouth and Swindon Town, before Middlesbrough stuck 4 beyond the tune on the final day. And for the Newcastle United fan of a nervous disposition, look away now.
What a good ball for Hours. Hours has done well. Gates. Yes. Gates. Gabbiadini gets it back. Yes. That's the goal. Nuttall sends Sunderland into the final.
Quite the time to lose to the fiercest rivals for the first time in 11 seasons. So as Sunderland swanned up to the First Division, Newcastle remained in the thick of the second flight, suffering the ignominies of results like a 5-4 loss at Filbert Street in December, home defeats to rabble like Hull City, Bristol Rovers and Charlton Athletic. The hurtling towards 11th place cost Jim Smith his job that he called unmanageable, and his successor Ozzy Ardiles only proved that by tanking the club even further. A February 1992 5-2 defeat away to Oxford United a week after their FA Cup elimination to Bournemouth left the Magpies in the relegation zone. There were a band of youngsters coming through, from Steve Watson to another Steve, Howie. But this was a club teetering on the brink of the 3rd Division and financial disaster. They could not rely on the youth of tomorrow to take them out of the bind of today. But their saviour had already arrived, and he went by the name of Sir John Hall. His first big decision, and would prove to be his most popular.
The talking over and done with, it was now time to face reality. Could Keegan inspire Newcastle to their first win in 7 matches?
Then a team that had won 1 in 14 won immediately thereafter, 3-0 at home to Bristol City. More wins soon dripped through at Port Vale, at Cambridge, at home to Swindon, the elite of the 2nd Division of their day. The next win that tripped off the Keegan tongue was his best yet.
It's quickly taken. Sheedy, big men up there. And it's a goal for Newcastle by Kelly.
The win not only got bragging rights over local rivals, but also leapfrogged the Black Cats into 17th place. 5 points and 5 places from relegation with so little of the season to go, surely that was safety secured. Then Wolves stuck 6 past them, Tranmere, Ipswich and Millwall all scabbed wins from the Magpies, and then Derby put 4 more beyond them. 2 games left, the Toon were back in trouble, back in the relegation zone. Had they really pinned all their hopes on a former player with 0 managerial experience to rescue a club from potential insolvency and expected it to work?
To Mickey Quinn, and then runs on to the return. The United striker stayed cool and slotted home his 22nd goal of the season. Defended well until Leicester's last throw of the dice. The ball was never really cleared, and skipper Steve Walsh bulleted his header past right. From Wright's long clearance, a misunderstanding between Walsh and his keeper meant despair for Leicester as the ball rolled into the empty net.
But it did work. From a man who quickly appeared broken by the weight of St James Park in the spring, he was busy being deified by the summer. And that's because the Toon kept winning and winning and winning and winning.
Forced wide, knocks it through for Clark. And it's an own goal.
Confidence was clearly soaring as Luton Town were the next to find out.
Kelly is pointing where he wants it. It's coming for Mickey Quinn. Mickey Quinn scores for Newcastle. Should have a go. It's O'Brien.
Going thanks to a single goal set up by Lee Clark. And
Through the middle here, they were looking around for a flag. And Kelly.
all of the game against Tranmere to make it 10 out of 10.
Back there, Venison. Peacock, lovely ball to Robert Lee. And it's in.
And that victory at Roker Park made it 11 from 11. Promotion had practically been secured in the first stroke, 10 points clear of West Ham. Obviously Newcastle couldn't retain this perfection throughout the season. The acid test for Keegan's Newcastle was their response when they finally did lose, and they did quite quickly in successive matches against Grimsby and Leicester. The tune were different now though. They had now teamed the exuberant new youth of Rob Lee and Andy Cole with experience in John Beresford, Paul Bracewell and Kevin Sheedy. And despite a run of 5 draws and defeat from January and February of '93, the gap to the playoffs remained a pretty impenetrable 12 points. It almost gave Newcastle the confidence to entertain once again.
Nielsen is broken, and Robert Lee, and is he going to go in? That is a sensational goal from Robert Lee. Sellers is on a run ahead of him. It's out for David Kelly, and Sellers kept going, and it's 6 now. And Robinson, and Kelly, it's 6.
They were entering the top flight of English football once more, but now it was a whole new ball game. Of all people, it was Ossie Ardiles who took his Tottenham Hotspur team up to his former haunt to dish out cold revenge on the opening weekend. 4 days later, Coventry City reaffirmed the idea that the Magpies had some way to get up to speed thanks to a late Mick Harford winner at Highfield Road. Although 3 days beyond that, a point at Old Trafford, home of the champions, was the first positive result of the season, the Toon never looked back.
Forward dangerously, and Allen, and it's there, laying it on for him, he adjusted and he hit it. Here, Cole wants it, Cole gets it, whips in the shot, and Cole finishes it off. There, and for Cole, he's done it again, Andy Cole, square of him, Andy Cole, stop my speed, Cole, surely you don't give him 2 chances.
It turns out Andy Cole was good enough for the Premier League. He was joined by the returning Peter Beardsley, discarded by both Merseyside clubs because they believed him to be over the hill. It could be argued that Newcastle got the very best out of the diminutive forward. When paired off with a prolific attacker, the pair were insatiable, grabbing 55 goals between them. Beardsley the provider, Cole would ultimately dwarf Hughie Gallagher's long-standing record of goals in a single season, a record that still stands today. The legend only continued when Liverpool turned up at St James Park in November.
Cole is in the middle. Cole, 1-0 to marking, but there was Cole and there was space. First time, Cole is there. Thank you very much.
It was clear by Christmas '93 that Newcastle had met the challenge of the Premier League head-on. They were housed some way back on Man United's tally of 52, but then again everyone else was. Rob Lee had made the jump up to the top flight seamlessly, whilst transfer additions Ruel Fox and Darren Peacock were clear improvements to the club. When Southampton got 3 points from St James's, when Luton Town upset them in the Cup's 4th round, and when trips to Selhurst and Ewood were empty-handed, it didn't matter. The Toon just kept rolling, no pressure, 0 problems.
Header back by Atherton, intercepted. And Cole Fox, Cole, 1-0! Through the Sellers, flanks down. Fox gets one now. Cole and Lee on a run. Great move this. Holland with a good looking ball for Cole. Cole, Beardsley, Lee through the middle, Lee.
The result, an incredible 3rd place with 77 points from the last ever 42 match English top flight season. It meant qualification for the UEFA Cup. The Magpies hadn't had the privilege of gracing European competition since a defeat to Bastia all the way back in 1977. Any signs that they were rusty quickly dispelled.
Lee playing it wide for Beresford, and there's Lee, and the room as well.
And it's Lee, and Lee again. It's again. Cole, Sellers. It's another good ball in there, and Lee. Watson looking to go all the way and really wrap it up.
Despite the quirk of that man Rob Lee scoring not just 1 or 2 but 3 headers against the Belgians, United wouldn't make a dent in Europe, bowing out to Athletic Club. It was the first real blemish to Newcastle's season. Philippe Albert was a handy acquisition at the back and a sign of things to come as a signing from Belgium and not the hardened stereotypical British talent of years gone by. With him, they'd put away teams like Chelsea and Arsenal, go toe-to-toe with some of the league's best in Liverpool and Blackburn, and in Premier League turns, had only gone down away to Old Trafford, again home of the champions. Both Newcastle and Andy Cole were proving they weren't one-season wonders. Before their first league defeat, Cole had scored in 6 of the Magpies' 9 wins so far. Then the season went ever so slightly off the rails.
Again, they're through now for Clark. And Clark puts Wimbledon ahead. Little there by Anderton, and Sheringham is away here, and Sheringham there, and Adams is on his own. That's a goal for Norwich, and where was the marking?
For the first time in 18 months' worth of Premier League football, it could be said that Newcastle United was feeling the pressure of expectation. Much worse than any run of form came in January. Andy Cole was sold with Keith Gillespie packaged up to come to St James Park as part of the deal, with a view to Paul Kitson replacing Cole's goals. Now this would be bad in any arena, but when coupled with the fact that Newcastle had just flogged their most prolific asset to Manchester United, a prospective title rival, that was unforgivable. Under those circumstances, most teams would dither into the mid-table and pack away the 1994-95 season prematurely. Newcastle, however, did things a little differently.
Still Fox again. Fox! What a terrific goal! He takes it on again. Looking for Gibson!
Lee over the top, Southall, it's in there!
A little heel for Hottiger. Fox in between them, and it's a goal!
And Gillespie can't miss this. Simple tap-in, but what went beforehand, Martin?
Gillespie, back for Venison. It's there! As far as Fox, and Fox, just look at that! Kitson, Clark's there, and Clark gets his goal!
It might have been enough to reward the team with the Tigers best of the rest behind challengers Manchester United and Blackburn Rovers. Plus, after they had eliminated Blackburn from the first hurdle of the FA Cup and won comfortably in front of their own fans against Swansea City and Manchester City, there was the sense that their long trophy drought could end. They had a quarter-final on Merseyside a mere 24 hours after one of the favourites, Liverpool, had been eliminated from the competition on home soil. With only Manchester United any real threat and a trip to an alien Everton to come, why couldn't Newcastle win the FA Cup?
Right up into that box, Ferguson getting up there, and Watson, and Cernicek couldn't reach it, and turn around here, Cernicek came for it, didn't get it, and Watson was straight in there.
Limper. Hinchcliffe. And McClatchy! They've got the second goal!
But Yeboah's solo effort meant the end of United's 15-month unbeaten run in the Premiership.
The only thing left to savour from a sideways step of a season was a certain pinch of schadenfreude, which was reserved for the final day when a certain Andy Cole couldn't hit a banjo with a cow's arse up at Upton Park. It meant Manchester United finally surrendered the Premier League trophy, with Newcastle all the way back in 6th, despite a respectable 72 points. Kevin Keegan's entertainers were to take the season away from Europe, a disappointment but also a measure of how far they had come. And they weren't done yet.
As reliable as ever.
With him, 2 players, there's Lee!
Has fired in a fabulous...
Nick trying to close him down, and Ferdinand! Full of good running, and a good cross, and Lee! And... Another great cross, and it's Gillespie. Keeps his cross in. Links it in there. Now Gillespie tries for a shot to Ferdinand.
There's a chance. Could it be the first goal of the day?
And Ferdinand's up there. And Lukic and Beardsley.
Newcastle United weren't about to lie down at the first sign of trouble in the Premier League. They'd gone big in the first months of the season, supplemented with going big in the transfer market that summer. Les Ferdinand was the replacement the Magpies had craved towards the back end of the prior campaign, and he would fill the Andy Cole void sufficiently. Then David Ginola arrived to much fanfare, another continental signing. He would get fans marvelling at his genius down the left almost immediately. Of course, there has to be the unglamorous but important acquisitions. In the summer, that was Warren Barton and Shaka Hislop. Come the winter, David Batty's addition from Leeds was a third vital acquisition. With the advent, Newcastle had not only surged to a seemingly unimpeachable position at the top of the league, but they'd puffed their chest out and got a 1-0 win at Anfield in the League Cup. It was hard not to make a case for the Toon just simply winning everything in this kind of form. Then a defeat at Stamford Bridge in the second week of December. Fine, it wasn't their first loss of the season anyway. Then the real main event after Christmas, a trip to Old Trafford to face the team that had so far governed the new Premier League. At exactly the halfway mark in the campaign, Newcastle led Manchester United by 10 whole points. Even a draw would likely be enough to all but put the title to bed already.
It's kicks to Cole! And Keane has got it. Roy Keane for Manchester.
It shouldn't have been terminal, and wasn't yet. Newcastle United holding a 7-point advantage at the top of the English football pyramid, and it was New Year. Nobody had seen the like of it. But then their confidence and momentum was chipped away slowly but surely. Arsenal eliminated them from the quarter-finals of the League Cup. 7 days later, it was Chelsea's turn to end cup dreams via penalties in a third-round FA Cup replay. But the Toon kept winning in the league. Coventry down, Bolton gone, Sheffield Wednesday evaporated, the Borough beaten. Mid-February, with an 11-day break ahead of them, and Newcastle United had reopened the wound at the top of the Premier League to 9 points, plus a game in hand. Despite Keegan topping up his attacking talent with Tino Asprilla, the lead at the top of the league was now whittled away week by week. They said he disrupted Newcastle's rhythm, another attack-minded forward in a rigid 4-4-2 of wide men Gillespie and Ginola, when the team still cried out for a deeper number 10 in the ilk of a Cantona, Bergkamp, Zola, Beardsley. First came a loss at the previous season's Kingmakers West Ham before a balmy 3-3 draw at Main Road. To begin March, Manchester United visited St James's Park. Was it the best time for a potential title decider, or the absolute worst time?
Ferdinand has been put through by Osman. Les Ferdinand. Lee. Peterman. Les Ferdinand. Well, he's unlucky here with it. Crossbar. Beardsley. He's gone for the shot. Good drop. Yeah, combining with Ferdinand. There's a great little chip from Neville. Cantona on the volley.
History might tell you that Newcastle collapsed from here, but they didn't. West Ham were beaten 3-0 2 weeks later. Newcastle still held a 3-point advantage, they still had a game in hand, and they wouldn't have to meet Alex Ferguson's team again. Then a trip to Highbury went awry. Their next game would go down in Premier League history.
Belief in his players, and look, Ferdinand turns, and he's run beyond McAteer. Newcastle can defend here. Fowler, where they know how. With brilliant attacking play of their own. It's a wicked ball coming out. Rush, Barnes. Still John Barnes. Cosemo closing in. Liverpool lead in stoppage time.
Kevin Keegan draped himself over the advertising hoarding, defeated. At that point, Newcastle's fate still in their own hands. Despite not occupying top spot in the league, 3 points behind with a game in hand, they could still win the title. Most neutrals believed they should win the title. Again, they rebuffed potential claims of a collapse, QPR beaten 2-1. 2 days later, they took the lead against a former Premier League champion in Blackburn Rovers. Then the less advertised but probably more brutal goals that the entertainers would concede. Still clutching a game in hand, Newcastle's advantage was now gone, given the other United's 6-point lead. Collapse? Not a bit of it.
Leave help. It's a nice turn inside the defender. Lovely goal. Ferdinand. Gillespie.
If anything, it was Ferguson's team on the verge of collapse. Their 1-0 wins, courtesy of a one-man band in Eric Cantona, had dried up. They were the ones who had lost more recently, and now fate was back in Newcastle's hands. We were in the final week of the season. Newcastle had their game in hand to come away at Nottingham Forest. Win that and the points would be deadlocked going into the final day. and Manchester United would have to go to Middlesbrough and get something, and oh yeah, there is the Newcastle United collapse.
We're still fighting for this title, and he's got to go to Middlesbrough and get something. And I'll tell you, honestly, I will love it if we beat them. Love it.
This is worrying for Newcastle. One goes for goal.
It's a good turn and an even better finish, and Spurs have taken the lead.
They say history is written by the winners. If Newcastle would have beaten them, that quote-unquote rant would have been immortalised as a rousing speech that won Newcastle the title. Instead, it became a method to poke fun at an emotional manager that had fallen into the web of Alex Ferguson's quote-unquote mind games. History will tell you the United from Newcastle were the happy-go-lucky entertainers, the United from Manchester the battle-hardened winners, and yet it was Ferguson's team that scored more goals, and the difference in goals conceded, just 2. The gap was 4 points, the title won by Manchester United 6 points against their closest rivals. The question was, could Newcastle go again?
Brent, and Pierce is in the middle, and it's the equaliser. Men forward here, Ferdinand's making a run against his old club. Fairly deep. Ferdinand got a touch and that's in as well. And Shearer, goal.
Just the 4 or 5 in the middle, and across.
That certainly suggested so, but we've not got to the main event yet. We've not got to the match that arguably encapsulates the Kevin Keegan era at St James's Park, despite it taking place a season after their closest brush with glory. No, that came when Manchester United returned into the Toon's crosshairs. The club were destined to battle for the title again, and by the time Keegan welcomed Ferguson to St James's Park on October the 20th, they led them by a point, and a win would take them top of the table.
Shearer going up well, Peacock! The goal is given. What a magnificent strike. Shearer, well, how does he work the ball in from there? That is game-setting match. And it started and finished Tyson.
And there is the most famous clash between the two, and it was carnage in respect to Ferguson's team, utter and pure bloodshed. The Toon had won the first battle on the pitch against the Red Devils, but it wasn't the first victory over their rivals that season. No, that was the acquisition of Alan Shearer for a world record £15 million. He was supposed to not work with Les Ferdinand and or Tino Asprilla. Those critics proven wrong. They'd wrapped up the UEFA Cup for the winter, qualifying for a quarter-final against Monaco, but crucially they had lapsed to 7 without a win in the Premier League before Christmas. In that dodgy-ass week between Christmas and New Year, however, the famous Newcastle United entertainers rebounded.
Between the defenders, Shearer still going. Still Newcastle trying to keep it. Beresford coming up well, and Ferdinand with Lee. Plenty of defenders there. Well there, but it has now. Albert, Lee down, Shearer, Matty back, and Lee, and that's a magnificent 7.
Again, things aren't as simple as they appear. With another thrashing handed out to a decent team, coupled with a subsequent New Year's Day 3-0 triumph over Leeds, surely this was the great response that Keegan could use as fuel for the second half of the season. They were still firmly entrenched in a title race, only 5 points off Liverpool's pace with a game in hand, and about half of the season still to play. Then, the bombshell.
Newcastle fans, worshippers of Kevin Keegan, trying to come to terms with the bombshell. He walked out.
There's nobody as good as Kevin Keegan, there's nobody, and oh God.
Newcastle United was rocked to its very core. The very 7-1 that was supposed to galvanise the Toon ahead of the business end of the season had become an epiphany for Keegan that he could no longer be galvanised as Newcastle United manager. Sure, history would write them as the closest challenger to the rampant Manchester United machine of its day in second place, but it was a silver medal again with 68 points on the final day, partly through luck. If you can't beat them, hire someone who has beat them was Newcastle's motto in the early weeks of '97, but the act of Kenny Dalglish coming did nothing to soothe the heartache of Keegan's departure.
Asprilla strikes. Team Gillespie across. A goal. Gillespie's cross again. Asprilla. And it's over Mars. He's past Pistone. There's no flag. And it's a Nelka.
This was Newcastle United now, perhaps good enough to battle the world's best on their day or do well in the cup competitions, but they were always, much like they were under Kevin Keegan, one small step away from immortality. And then Newcastle slinked off into the mire once again, mid-table finishes with silver medals only achieved in potluck laissez-faire cup contests as opposed to the hard slog marathon of league competition. Still, they were more successful than they had been in the 1980s, and the memories are still more vibrant than the days of Joe Harvey in the 60s and 70s, both of which you can learn about here.